Greatness has never lived in the comfort zone. It has never been born from safety, never emerged from predictable routines, and never thrived in the spaces where fear reigns supreme. The truth is, everything you dream of, everything you envision, when no one else is around, lies on the other side of risk. And that's not poetic fluff. That's reality. If you're going to change your life, if you're going to rewrite your story, you need to confront the one thing that most people spend their entire lives avoiding: uncertainty. There comes a moment when you realize that staying safe is actually the most dangerous choice you can make. Because safety breeds stagnation. It turns potential into regret. And regret is a slow death. You can live 100 years in safety and never feel alive. You can surround yourself with comfort, security, and routine, and still be haunted by the echo of what could have been. That haunting, that whisper in your soul. It's the sound of a story that was never written because the risk was never taken. Every powerful story starts at the edge of fear. Every hero you've ever admired stood where you're standing right now, at the crossroads between staying the same and stepping into something unknown. The unknown is intimidating, yes. It's full of potential failure, but it's also full of potential greatness. You can't have one without risking the other. That's the trade-off. That's the price, and only the bold are willing to pay it. Look at the mountain in front of you. It looks massive, unmovable. But here's what nobody tells you. The mountain isn't just the obstacle, it's the proving ground. You climb it, not just to get to the top, but to become the kind of person who can get to the top. And the only way you do that is by taking the first step, by betting on yourself when there's no guarantee. That's the essence of risk, believing in what you cannot yet see. What are you holding back on right now? What dream have you placed on the shelf because you're afraid it won't work out? What goal have you talked yourself out of because the path wasn't clear? It's time to wake up to this fact. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes through action. And if you keep waiting for all the lights to turn green, if you keep waiting for perfect conditions, you'll miss the miracle. The miracle is in the leap. The leap into uncertainty, into risk, into the uncharted territory of your own potential. You weren't made for mediocrity. You weren't built for half effort and half truths. Deep down, you know that. That's why it burns when you settle. That's why comfort becomes a cage. It may feel warm at first, but eventually it starts to suffocate. The longer you stay in it, the more your spirit begins to shrink. And that voice in your heart, the one that tells you you're made for more, it starts to go quiet. Not because it was wrong, but because you stopped listening. Taking a risk isn't reckless. Staying in a place that doesn't challenge you is. Risk isn't the enemy, it's the invitation. It's the hand reaching out to pull you into the life you were meant to live. But here's the hard truth. You have to answer. You have to move. You have to act, even if your voice shakes, even if your knees tremble. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. And when your dreams matter more than your doubts, that's when transformation begins. It won't be easy. Let's not sugarcoat this. You're going to fail. You're going to fall. You're going to have moments where everything in you screams to turn back. But here's what you have to remember. Failure isn't the end of your story. It's the fuel. It's the fire. Every time you get up, every time you push forward despite the odds, you're writing a sentence in your story that matters. You're turning risk into resilience. You're turning fear into fuel. You want a story worth telling? Then you need moments worth surviving. You need scars that speak of battles fought, not wounds from battles avoided. Playing it safe might keep you from pain, but it will also keep you from purpose. And purpose is worth the price. It's worth every tear, every setback, every sleepless night. Because when you're living with purpose, when you're chasing something bigger than comfort, you finally feel alive. You finally feel like your life matters. This is the season where you stop negotiating with fear, where you stop making excuses, where you stop waiting for someone to give you permission to pursue the life you were born to live. No one's coming to save you. No one's going to hand you your dreams wrapped in certainty and convenience. You've got to go get them. You've got to stare risk in the face and say, let's go. Because once you take that leap, Once you step into the unknown, you'll realize that the fear wasn't real. It was just a wall built by doubt. And the second you stop feeding that doubt, the wall starts to crumble. On the other side is strength. On the other side is purpose. On the other side is the version of you that you were always meant to become. This isn't about being reckless. This is about being real. About acknowledging that the greatest enemy to your growth is the lie that playing it safe will somehow lead you to joy. It won't. Safety is seductive, but it's also sterile. You don't grow in safety. You don't lead in safety. You don't love fully in safety. Risk is what sharpens your edges. Risk is what deepens your story. It's what adds color to the grayscale life that fear tries to sell you. There will always be reasons not to try. There will always be voices, internal and external, that tell you to shrink. But there's another voice too. The voice of your future self. The version of you that stood up, spoke out, and stepped forward. That voice is calling. That voice is waiting. And it's only through risk that you'll ever reach it. So if you want the story, if you want the journey that matters, then you need to be willing to bet on yourself. Not because it's safe, but because you'll never write your story from the safety of your comfort zone. That's a truth most people try to ignore, because comfort feels good. It's predictable, it's safe, it doesn't challenge your identity. But comfort is not where stories are made. Stories are born in the space between fear and action, where risk lives. If you want to create something memorable, something powerful, something that echoes beyond the walls of your own life, you have to walk into the unknown. Think about the moments in history that inspire us. The explorers, the dreamers, the leaders who stood up when it was dangerous to speak. They didn't have a map. They didn't have guarantees. What they had was the willingness to risk. Risk failure, risk rejection, risk being misunderstood. And that's what separates those who only exist from those who truly live. Because to live is to leap, and to leap is to risk falling. But without that fall, you never get the rise. Every meaningful achievement comes with a price, not always in money, but in sweat, uncertainty, and perseverance. And it begins with the willingness to let go of what's familiar. The job you hate but are afraid to leave. The city that feels like a cage, not a home. The relationship that keeps you small. These are the walls of comfort, and they are invisible. Prisons. Most people will never see the bars because they've decorated them to look like success. But deep down, they know. They feel it. The quiet ache of what could have been. There's a moment in every person's life when they hear the whisper, there's more. More than what you've settled for. More than what people said you could be. More than the small version of yourself you've been dragging around like a broken memory. That whisper is not there to tease you. It's there to invite you. It's a call to risk, to dare, to write a story that matters. But here's the thing. Most people ignore the whisper. They drown it out with distraction. They scroll, they binge, they numb themselves. Not because they don't want the story, but because they fear the risk. Because risk is painful. It means stepping out when no one believes in you. It means failing publicly. It means waking up with doubt screaming louder than your ambition. But none of that makes it wrong. In fact, all of that makes it real. Risk is the cost of the extraordinary. You will not make a dent in the universe by playing it safe. Playing it safe is the fastest way to fade into the background of your own life. And the longer you wait, the louder regret becomes. It doesn't yell at first, it whispers. Then it grows. Until one day you wake up and realize the only thing standing between you and your destiny was the courage to take the first step. Risk doesn't always mean jumping off a cliff. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's choosing to speak up when it's easier to be silent. Sometimes it's walking away from something good to chase something great. Sometimes it's choosing to heal instead of hide. Every single risk, no matter how small, is a vote for the life you want, not just the life you were given. Fear is not the enemy. It's the compass. The direction you fear the most is often the place where your purpose is hiding. It's not there to paralyze you. It's there to point you toward growth. If it scares you and excites you at the same time, that's not confusion, that's calling. And yes, you will fail. You will fall short. You will try things that don't work. But that's the point. Nobody remembers the people who never failed, because they never did anything worth remembering. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs your story. But your story doesn't get written unless you're willing to walk into the unknown, bleeding and unsure, and say, "This is me. This is what I believe. This is what I want to build." When you risk, you activate the part of yourself that's been dormant, the part that knows how to create, how to persist, how to fight for something beyond instant gratification. And that version of you, the one forged through trials, is the version capable of changing everything. Your comfort zone might feel like a warm blanket, but it is also a slow death. It kills dreams, dulls vision, and numbs purpose. It tricks you into thinking that tomorrow is promised, that you have time. But time is not guaranteed. The only thing you own is the choice you make right now. And right now you have a choice. Shrink or stretch. Hide or rise. Repeat your past or risk a new future. You weren't made to play small. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to create a ripple, to shift a narrative, to leave something behind that outlives your name. But none of that happens without risk, without showing up scared, without trying when you don't have it all figured out, without stepping into the arena before you feel ready. The world tells you to wait until the plan is perfect. But life doesn't reward perfection, it rewards movement. If you want your story to mean something, you have to start writing it in ink made from courage. Every chapter begins with a risk. Every breakthrough is the result of a choice to face fear rather than bow to it. And every person you admire got there not because they had more talent or more opportunity, but because they decided that the pain of regret was worse than the pain of failure. There are people right now living lives they hate, not because they lack the ability to change, but because they lack the nerve to try. Don't let that be you. Don't let your potential become a ghost that haunts you. Risk is not a detour, it's the path, and only those brave enough to take it will ever know what it feels like to be fully alive. Taking risks is often the difference between a life that remains ordinary and one that becomes extraordinary. There is an undeniable truth that if you want to leave a mark on this world, if you want to create a legacy that outlasts your years, you must step beyond the safety of the familiar. Too many people settle for comfort, for security, for the routine that guarantees no surprises, but also guarantees no growth. But the story of every person who has achieved greatness, who has changed. The course of history is a story that begins with a step into the unknown. Risk is not just about gambling with your future or throwing caution to the wind. It is a deliberate choice to trust that something greater is at work, even when you cannot see the path clearly. To risk means to believe in the potential of what could be, to have faith in your own capacity to overcome obstacles and learn from failure. It means understanding that progress requires movement, and movement often means walking through uncertainty. The fear of failure is natural, but it must never become the prison that keeps you locked in place. Fear whispers lies, that the safety net is more valuable than the wings to fly, that the familiar pain of stagnation is better than the unknown pain of change. But in truth, the greatest opportunities, the deepest growth, and the richest fulfillment are found on the other side of that fear. Every moment spent avoiding risk is a moment wasted avoiding your potential. Risk demands courage, not the absence of fear, but the strength to act despite it. It demands resilience, the ability to rise each time you fall, to learn from setbacks, and to keep moving forward when the path grows dark. The journey of risk is messy, unpredictable, and often painful, but it is also the soil where dreams take root and where purpose comes alive. When you take a risk, you are making a declaration that your story matters. You are saying that your life is worth more than playing it safe, that the future you desire is worth the sacrifices and uncertainties you face now. It is a bold statement of faith, not just in a higher power, but in yourself, your vision, and the unique gifts you bring to the world. To embrace risk is to open the door to transformation. It is to invite change, growth, and possibility into your life. When you remain in your comfort zone, you may avoid failure, but you also avoid success. You may avoid pain, but you also avoid joy. You may avoid rejection, but you also avoid connection. The fullness of life, its colors, its textures, its depth, is found where risk lives. Risk is also the language of hope. It speaks of a future that is better than the past, of a promise that the next chapter can be richer than the last. It challenges you to believe that the obstacles you face today are not the end of your story, but the beginning of a breakthrough. Risk calls you to press on when the world tells you to stop, to stand firm when doubt surrounds you, and to keep dreaming when reality feels harsh. When you choose risk, you also choose to write a story worth telling. Stories are not born from safety and predictability, but from bold decisions and brave actions. Every hero's journey involves risk of failure, rejection, and sometimes even loss. But it is in those moments that true character is forged and true victory is claimed. The beauty of risk is that it levels the playing field. It does not matter who you are, where you come from, or what you have done in the past. What matters is your willingness to step forward, to try, and to believe. The greatest stories of triumph have come from ordinary people who made extraordinary choices, who refused to let fear dictate their lives. When you risk, you become an example for others. You inspire those around you to also step into the unknown, to pursue their own dreams with passion and persistence. Your courage becomes a beacon of hope, a testament to what is possible when you refuse to settle. Your story becomes a legacy not just because of what you accomplish, but because of the risks you took to get there. Risk also teaches valuable lessons. Sometimes the outcome is not what you hoped for, and failure visits your door. But even in failure, there is wisdom. Risk shows you where you need to grow, it refines your character, and it reveals new paths that you might never have considered. Without risk, you remain stagnant. With risk, you evolve. The process of taking risks also builds resilience. The more you risk, the more you learn to trust yourself and your ability to handle whatever comes your way. It strengthens your faith, not just in a higher plan, but in your own capacity to endure, adapt, and thrive. This resilience is what prepares you for the greater challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Risk is a call to action. It is the spark that ignites your passion and the engine that drives your purpose. Without risk, dreams remain dreams and potential remains unrealized. With risk, you transform ideas into reality, aspirations into achievements, and hope into fulfillment. The narrative that comfort and security are the ultimate goals is a lie that keeps many trapped in mediocrity. True fulfillment, true success, and true joy are found when you dare to risk. The story of your life is waiting to be written, but it cannot be written if you remain safe and still. Risk requires sacrifice. It means giving up the certainty of the known for the possibility of the unknown. It means enduring temporary discomfort for the sake of permanent gain. But these sacrifices are not in vain. They are investments into a future that is greater than your past, into a story that is richer than your history. When you choose risk, you align yourself with every great story ever told. The story of the pioneer who left everything behind, the entrepreneur who bet it all on an idea, the leader who stood alone against opposition, and the believer who trusted the unseen. They all took risks, and their stories echo through time because of it. Risk also connects you to purpose. It reveals what truly matters to you by showing you what you are willing to fight for. It strips away distractions and reveals the core of your calling. When you risk, you are no longer living for safety but for significance. The ultimate truth is that life without risk is a life without story. Your story is created in the moments when you step out, when you say yes to the unknown, and when you embrace the discomfort that growth demands. Risk is the gateway, the threshold, the door that you must walk through if you want to live a life that matters. So the question is not whether you will face risk. Risk is inevitable, but whether you will allow it to define you or refine you. Will you let fear hold you back, or will you let faith push you forward? The choice is yours, and the story you want to live is waiting on the other side of risk.